You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony.
Welcome back to Where You Live. We're broadcasting live from the Concierge Landscape Studios. And before we get back into our topic today, I'd like to remind our listeners in the first hour that we have a newsletter. It's a bi-monthly feature that's yours free for the asking. All you need to do is give us a call at New Concepts during the week at 952-922-2500. Ask for Courtney, and she'll make sure that you start receiving that newsletter. It's a great resource. We've got over 18,000 subscribers now. And then I also have to say, Helmuth and Johnson puts out a great newsletter too. A great piece too.
Yeah, you could just sign up for that hjlawfirm.com.
Yeah,
and great articles, lots of timely information.
Folks, if you're just joining us, our guest today is J. Robert Keena, a partner with the law firm of Helmuth and Johnson. He deals with insurance claim settlement and also litigation with property defects too, construction defects. Is that
yeah, I
right?
would say 60% construction defects, as they're called, and 40% first-party claims because of the large claims in Minnesota we've been having with hail losses and wind losses and things like that. These are large numbers that the insurance companies are evaluating more carefully.
Now, go ahead, Tony.
I wanted to mention Helmuth and Johnson's area of expertise generally is homeowner associations. So we do a lot of work with you for different reasons.
Right. My partners, Dave Helmuth and Chad Johnson, are homeowners association lawyers.
Yeah, that's right. If you have a question about insurance today, however, please call in 651-289-4488. We have the expert here.
Yes, and right before the break, I was asking the question, does a homeowner have to feel obligated in simply accepting the settlement on a claim by the insurance company right out of hand?
Well, many people will probably answer that yes. I mean, they may have this sense that if their insurance company brings them a number, which that seems too low to them, they may have a sense that they can go out and get a bid, and if their bid is much higher, they may be able to go back and negotiate with their insurance company a little bit. But the fact of the matter is under Minnesota law for the standard fire policy statute found at 65A01, or even under all Minnesota policies regarding residential property, you'll find a provision called the appraisal provision in the policy, which allows specific procedures to when you have a disagreement with an insurance company regarding the value of the loss.
And that's a great provision to have in the contract. But let's talk a little bit why. What are some of the reasons why something like that is even necessary? For example, the insurance adjuster, that could be a big variable, couldn't it?
Well, it can be a variable, especially when there's large-scale storm losses in Minnesota. You'll find adjusters coming from all over the country. When we had the major hail losses or the major wind losses, I was dealing with adjusters who were from the South, and I was dealing with adjusters who were from California. And, well, frankly, the California adjusters would write the loss much higher than the Alabama adjuster. Right.
Yeah.
So you'd want a California adjuster to say, yeah, this is going to cost you $20,000, when the Alabama adjuster would say, we can get this done for $3,500.
So when the adjuster comes, if you ask him where he's from, if he's from Alabama, you say, I'll wait for the California fella. Thank you very much.
Maybe you could try that. I actually had an experience once with an adjuster who knew nothing about homeowner associations. He was called in to assess some damage to the interior of a unit and said, yeah, that's a claim on the homeowners association policy. And I said, well, wait a minute. You need to talk to that insurance agent because the homeowner's responsible for the interior. And he had no idea.
It's amazing the different skill levels with these adjusters.
Yeah.
I find that, I've been a construction lawyer now for 10 years and a property damage lawyer for 13 years. And because of that, all I do is speak about construction and property damage all day long. So I have a fair amount of knowledge with regard to how things can be fixed, what applies where. And some adjusters literally are the most knowledgeable people I've ever encountered in terms of these losses and things.
Yes.
And they're very helpful. They're very professional. While others will come in and make statements like that, broad statements regarding what's covered, what isn't covered, broad statements about what it will cost to fix something. And I find myself, as a lawyer, you can imagine, well, my reputation is definitely a bare-knuckle pit bull. But the fact of the matter is That doesn't necessarily work well with an adjuster. I can't say you do it or else, because they'll just feel like they have to put their fists up,
Yeah.
metaphorically, and fight me. So what I sometimes do is I have to sit down with them and say, well, are you aware in Minnesota that this is going on, or are you aware that this loss includes X, Y, and Z? And if you approach them sometimes with in that perspective,
Yeah.
they're more responsive.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and people from other areas, they just can't know all of the codes that are pertinent
Sure.
in Minnesota. Someone in Texas isn't going to know what ice shield is underneath roof shingles.
They don't even
you
know what ice dams are, or the dam ice, as I like to call it.
Yes. But besides the factor of the adjuster and maybe their knowledge and where they come from regionally too, time is a factor too, because there's a difference when a homeowner if there's a single family home and you're dealing with a fire than you are with a regional event such as Hurricane Katrina or the hailstorms we had.
Right, they may change the deadlines with regard to statute, and I'll explain these deadlines a little bit. They're important, and I'll also explain how to go through an appraisal process without a lawyer, because I think folks should know about that. But the deadlines in Minnesota are typically 2 years, and very often homeowners will get a denial for coverage. And they'll see that date of denial as the benchmark date, and they'll say, okay, if it's a 2-year statute of limitations on a claim like this, I have 2 years from this denial. But instead, it's actually the deadline from the date of loss. And sometimes you don't discover a loss, like a hail loss. Let's say you have a hail loss in May, and in September, your handyman goes up on the roof and sees some damaged tin and realizes the whole roof is covered in hail loss. And the company's going to come out and they're going to adjust it in the fall. Well, they get up, they're scheduled to be there, but we get an early snowstorm. So they can't get up there, and they wait until the spring. And then you're busy that summer, someone's ill or you're having a baby. And next thing you know, 2 years and a week have gone by.
Wow.
In that circumstance, I talked about earlier about when I was representing insurers, how we strictly applied these deadlines. In that circumstance, on more than one occasion, I would write a letter saying, I'm sorry, your right to sue us is gone, and therefore the claim is over.
Wow. Let me ask you this about that date of loss. Is that the date I report the loss, or who determines when that hailstorm occurred and when my loss occurred?
Well, what I like to do is leave it to them. When you receive a letter from an open claim from an insurance company, one of the line items up in the subject section of the letter up top will say date of loss. So don't hire Rob Keno or another lawyer to fight about the date of loss. Just look at their date of loss and meet
Work with that.
And
Okay.
Yeah. And otherwise, hey, I'm a clever lawyer. I may be able to make some arguments with regard to what the true date of loss is based on weather service reports or something like that. But why pay a lawyer hundreds of dollars an hour to make that argument if you know, okay, well, I have a loss on my home. I'm now going to my insurance policy, and I'm making a determination, is this a 1-year right of suit policy, or is it a 2-year? And there's some variations with regard to associations, etc. And then you say to yourself, okay, I have a 2-year policy. They measure the date of loss as this date. Back up 2 months from the 2-year anniversary of that date. If they haven't paid you, consult with the lawyer.
There you go.
Well, we're talking about the appraisal process and what are your rights as a homeowner if you are in dispute with your insurance company on the cost to cure after a disaster. We need to take a break right now, but please call us with your questions, your comments, 651-289-4488. We'll be back after these messages. You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony on AM 1280, The Patriot.